Super Mario World is the first video game I ever played. Sure, I had played some educational computer games before, but one day when I was around 4 or 5 years old, I got that mysterious Super Nintendo from my grandfather, and 2 decades later, here we are. Super Mario World was a release title for the Super Nintendo in 1991, and, bundled with it, sold millions. It is actually the 4th game in the main Mario platformer series, and ended up being the last traditional 2D Mario platformer for over 15 years, until the release of New Super Mario Bros. All the way in 2006. This game was conceived as a follow-up to Super Mario Bros. 3, and had as a big design goal being more accessible than the previous game. Mario 3, like many NES games, gets very hard on later levels, but Super Mario World had to be much more welcoming to new players, as many would likely be having their first experience with a video game, such as me. In most games, controlling Mario is done with 2 buttons plus the D-pad. One button jumps, and the other runs and uses any special ability Mario might have equipped at the time. Unlike in Mega Man, which has incredibly precise controls, the player controlling the plumber has to be mindful of his momentum to a certain extent in order to control the jumps. If the player just moves the D-pad left or right, Mario walks at a constant speed that's not exactly good for much, made worse by the fact that he has quite slow acceleration. Holding the run button though, makes Mario accelerate much faster and to a much higher top speed, but also makes him harder to control as stopping isn't instant. Most of climbing the Mario skill curve comes from learning how to control Mario's momentum to skillfully jump over obstacles and on enemies. Mario's jump can be adjusted by how long the player keeps the button held. Lightly tapping it will make him jump about twice as high as he is tall in his small form, while holding it all the way will get him about twice that height. A short jump also results in the vertical momentum being cut much more suddenly, making Mario start falling much faster. A higher jump results in a more natural fall off on the vertical speed, meaning Mario spends longer hanging with almost zero vertical speed. This game also adds some extra depth to the usual Mario formula by introducing the spin jump. This variation on the normal jump does not go as high as the normal jump and is harder to control, but it's able to damage and defeat some enemies the normal jump cannot, and it's also capable of safely bouncing on certain obstacles. Now let's get to what makes Mario World an accessible game. The 2 biggest innovations in this game compared to Super Mario 3 are the cape and Yoshi, and both work together to make this game easier. The cape allows Mario to fly when he jumps after reaching a certain speed. This was already possible with the raccoon leaf in Mario 3, but the cape also allows the plumber to glide around indefinitely as long as the player gets the rhythm of the button presses right. The cape also has the extra advantage of allowing Mario to, when the player holds the jump button, fall much slower than usual, making tricky jump sessions incredibly easier even when there is no space to jump. Of course, this has its drawbacks, which are actually one of the biggest points of criticism against this game. Most levels have a large, empty sky, meaning as soon as the cape is available, they can be outright skipped if the player flies over them. Despite the criticism, this is certainly by design, as frustrated players that can't beat a level the normal way can just fly over it. Note that all castle levels are enclosed spaces, keeping the player from skipping those levels. Other than that, and in a more personal criticism, the fact the cape slows down Mario's descent when the jump button is held means that a higher jump will always have some extra lag on the air, unless the player has frame-perfect timing and stops holding the button as soon as Mario hits the peak of his jump. This can throw off the jump timing if you have to be especially precise. Other than the cape, the main new feature in the game is Yoshi. Yoshi is the realization of an idea that was hatched all the way back on the development of Super Mario Bros. To give Mario a mount. When mounted on Yoshi, normal jumps have the same properties as the spinning jumps, but keep their normal vertical reach. Yoshi can also extend his tongue to grab and swallow objects or enemies, which makes it a workable replacement for Mario's arms. Yoshi also works as a difficulty crutch. When Mario is hit in any form other than small, he loses that form, and when he's hit as a small Mario, he dies. When he's hit while riding on Yoshi though, he's just knocked off the dinosaur, who runs around scared. Yoshi bounces back when it hits a wall, and can fall off holes, but otherwise, there is nothing permanently lost when hit while on Yoshi. Mario can just hop back on the dinosaur and nothing of value is lost. This makes the game much easier, as the player can be hit as many times as they need to be until Yoshi falls off a hole. As the spin jump and Yoshi create a second tier for jump power, the enemy design has to be adjusted to make it worthwhile. As such, enemies in Mario World frequently have behaviors that are different from their counterparts in earlier or even later games in the series. The Koopa Troopas, for example, do not retreat to their shells when hit, but are knocked off of them. The shellless turtles come in two varieties, one that works basically as a Goomba from other games, and another one that can kick the shells back at Mario. If the player spin jumps on the Koopa, or uses a Yoshi though, it's destroyed in one shot without being ejected from the shell. This is true for many other enemies. The Goombas are merely flipped around by a normal jump, and can be held and used as a projectile. A spin jump defeats them outright. Note that this particular variation of Goomba later appeared in Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, renamed as Galumba. The Rex are dinosaur-like enemies who get flattened by a normal jump. In this state, they are shorter and move faster, and are defeated by a second jump. Again, you guessed it, a spin jump bypasses all this and defeats them outright. In general, spiked enemies, or anything that would be pointy when stepped on really, can be bounced on by the spin jump, but hurt Mario on a normal jump. This includes the piranha plants and spinies. Finally, to close things off for today, there's the matter of the word mentioned in the title. Unlike previous games, Super Mario World isn't divided in a number of disconnected words. Super Mario Bros. 3 had 8 separate words, each with their own individual theme. Mario World starts with the more self-contained Yoshi's Island before quickly opening the player to the world map after the first castle. The individual words are still there, as seen by the numbering of the levels and the castles, but the player has much more choice. Another big feature in this game is the fact that many levels have more than just one exit, and different exits lead to different levels. This means that players can reach the ending by many different routes that go from just following the main path to altogether skipping 90% of the game and reaching the final boss in less than 20 minutes. As soon as the player starts a new game, there are already 2 different levels to choose from, making it very clear from the onset that there is no linear correct path in this game, but the one you make yourself. And that's all for today. Next time, as per the norm, we're gonna take a look at the first level of the game, or the first 2 levels in this case, to break down how players are taught how to play it. Thanks for watching. Please leave any feedback, suggestion or criticisms in the comments, and as usual, if you like my content, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Thank you again, and until next time.